Thank you so much, all of you, for being here today. I'm glad that you're all here with us. My name is Jennifer Quiroz, and I'm the Executive Director of the Financial Empowerment Network. And welcome to our February workshop, Supporting the Financial Wellness of Justice-Involved Individuals. Over the last year, the Financial Empowerment Network has been working with Seattle Clemency Project to support the integration of financial education into services for folks leaving the prison system. And so because that's been a focus of ours, we have done a few different trainings on the topic over the last year. In the fall, we hosted a Bank on Coffee Hour with Nick Allen of Columbia Legal Services, and he shared with us about legal financial obligations, or LFOs. And then in December, we hosted another Bank on Washington Coffee Hour Plus, which was community conversations, welcoming justice-involved individuals and communities into mainstream financial services. In that workshop, we heard from Anthony Powers of the Seattle Clemency Project, Becky House of AFS, who's with us here today. Welcome, Becky. Plus, we heard from 3 financial institutions who are working in the community with justice-involved individuals. It was Brittany Elder of JP Morgan Chase, Elizabeth Escobar of Express Credit Union, and Deanne Goff of First Security Bank. Recordings of both of those events are available, and I will put them in the chat. I'll put the links in the chat in just a moment. So all of that leads us to today, and I'm so pleased to have Cassie Russell with us as we continue to explore this topic. Today is going to be an interactive session. We really want the opportunity to meet each other and also to hear from you. So if you are able and comfortable, please feel free to turn on your cameras and raise your hand or jump into the chat as you have questions, because we want to hear from all of you. So Cassie, thank you so much for joining us today. Cassie is an ICF contractor providing training and technical assistance on behalf of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. This work includes working directly with organizations who are implementing the Your Money, Your Goals toolkit in their settings. Cassie has extensive experience helping organizations integrate financial empowerment services, and she's personally partnered with hundreds of individuals on financial capability goals. Cassie has worked with a diverse set of organizations, including Head Start, Early Head Start, community action agencies, multi-service organizations, tribal organizations, faith-based organizations, and colleges and universities. She's passionate about partnering with communities to address and remove barriers, and we're so pleased that she's joining us here today. So thank you, Cassie, and I will turn it over to you.
Thanks so much, Jennifer, and thank you all for taking the time to be here today. I'm going to start with some slides in just a moment, but I also just wanted to add that I'm really excited about this topic today and to hear what all of you are working on. Outside of my role with the Bureau, I volunteered with a federal public defender's office for a while, and I've worked with a lot of justice-involved individuals who are seeking emergency shelter. So really familiar with some of the barriers that people face in terms of getting banked or finding housing. And so I'm excited to discuss those with you today. So as Jennifer said, my name is Cassie, and I'm part of the ICF team that supports the work of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And today we're going to explore a companion guide called Focus on Reentry. Before we get started, as Jennifer said, today's interactive, so we really hope that you all will participate in the chat, or if you feel comfortable, unmute yourself and share with your voice, however you're comfortable, because we want this to really be relevant and a good use of your time. I know everyone's really busy, so giving up time to be here is significant. Before we get started, I need to let you know that nothing I say today is legal advice or an endorsement of a product or service. Everything I say is my own view and might not reflect the view of the Bureau. Today, we are going to talk about some third-party leaks, especially around credit, and it's important to note that there are many services in the marketplace that may meet your needs or the needs of the people that you're working with. All right, so now that we have that out of the way, we're going to work on focus on reentry today. So we just want to get you familiar with the tools and make sure you know about the CFPB. So you already said in the chat your name and your organization, but I'd love to hear from you what you want to get out of today's session, and then also how you work with folks that are justice involved. So whether that's your primary role, if you're a program manager or a leader in a program that touches this, if you work in some sort of social services organization and some of the folks that you work with are justice involved. So tell us a little bit about how you work with folks so that we can make sure we tailor today's content. Okay, so the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is who's making this information available, and they're a newer federal agency, and in addition to being a regulator, they also work to make sure consumers have what they need to be empowered. And this work is housed in the Community Affairs section, and part of that work is making resources available to all of you. Oh, great. Somebody just said they partner with WorkSource on ABLE accounts, budgeting, credit, debt. So all of that is definitely relevant. So the Bureau makes all of these tools available to you. There's the toolkit, the companion guides, which today we'll focus on one of those guides, and 4 booklets. So I just want to briefly touch on this suite of materials so that you can use them in your other work and know how to access free resources. So the toolkit is not a curriculum. It's very large. It has 43 tools and handouts, and it's really meant to respond to a variety of needs. So it's organized by topic so that somebody can pull out a handout or a tool and address a specific need that a client or a person you're serving has. So I'm curious, tell me in the chat, has anyone used the toolkit before? Is anyone familiar with the toolkit? Very familiar. Great. Yes. Yes. Great. And it's okay if you're not. There's the link there. You can explore it, but you can also order free copies. So no need to use your printing budget on this. It's something that you can access and have mailed to you for free. So we'll look at that a little later on, but keep that in mind. There's also 4 booklets to help you talk about specific money situations. So the first one is Want Credit to Work for You, and it's available in English and in Spanish. And these arrive spiral bound. So if you work in a correctional facility or if you're a visitor in a correctional facility, there's a special link so you can order one without wire binding. And this is 8 tools for you and the person you're working with to work through if they're interested in credit goals. There's also one on debt. So this helps somebody get a full picture of their existing debt and make a plan for debt repayment. There's also information on student loans and dealing with debt collectors. Building your savings, which helps somebody prioritize their savings goals. And there's a great tool in there on planning for tax time. So if that's a conversation that you're having with folks, you can use that tool with them. And today we are going to talk about focus on reentry. So there's the link. You can go ahead and click it so you can get your version online. If you would like a printed copy, you can order it as well. The focus on reentry has 10 modules. So the main toolkit has 9 modules, and you'll notice if you're familiar with the toolkit, they're the same modules. And then this guide has an additional module on understanding background screening reports, since that's a popular topic. Just like the guide, it's not a curriculum. It's designed to meet the needs of a specific conversation. So why is the Bureau interested in this work? More than 70 million individuals have criminal legal records, and we know that it impacts employment and housing, and that financial challenges are deeply ingrained. So you can use the information and tools to partner with folks to develop a budget, rebuild credit, access and review their credit reports, and be prepared for their job search. And we do this all because of financial well-being. So the Bureau defines this as a state of being able to meet current and ongoing financial obligations, to feel secure now and in the financial future, and to make choices that allow for the enjoyment of life. So we're really focused on this freedom of choice and recognizing that clients might make choices that would be different for us. I worked with a client, and for her, freedom of choice and really feeling secure meant purchasing a vehicle that she could live in instead of entering transitional housing, because she really was focused on transportation and having it be her space and not tied to group living or a voucher program. So we'll talk about goal setting a little later, but just to highlight that this is kind of the framework that the Bureau is working towards, rather than a specific savings goal or credit score. So you can access a financial well-being scale online if this is of interest to you. It's good for people who are motivated by numbers. You can find out your own financial well-being score, and instead of just giving you a result that you might not feel great about, then there's information on what you can do next to address the areas where you might need help. So this is also something that you can do electronically or on paper with the people that you serve. So just there's two components if you use the paper version, the questionnaire and the scoring. So you can access that all online if that's of interest. All right, any questions on the resources before we really dive into today's content? Okay. Well, we're going to do an opening activity. So I want you to tell me in the chat any word, phrase, saying, song, or association you have with the word money. So when I say the word money, what do you think of? It can be media, it can be an idea that you heard maybe growing up, books, words, phrases, songs, feelings. Cheddar, okay, great. Independence, responsibility, all about the measurements, yeah. For many people, stress, yeah, absolutely. Money theme song, capitalism, yep. Okay, so what we know, anxiety, yes. Inequity, absolutely, both structural and interpersonal, right? So money is an accepted exchange. I pay my rent, my landlord gives me a place to live. So how did we go from this really basic definition of an exchange to all of the things that you all shared, right? There were feelings, there were positive connotations, there were negative, some were a little silly, a lot of them came from music. But what we know is that people get associations about money from a lot of places. So tell me in the chat, where did you learn about money, or where do the people that you serve get their ideas about money? So you can either share for you or the folks that you work with. Where do we learn about money? Mentors, mom, parents, great. Google, yep. Family values, YouTube. Yeah, your own mistakes, absolutely. Where else? What about some of the systems or institutions that we learn about money from? Media, yep. That's why so many songs came up, right? TikTok, okay. School, absolutely. Great. A lot of people also might get messages about money from communities of faith, specific people I'm seeing in the chat. Yeah, so specific sort of advice people or school, friends, online. Yep, again, a specific person coming up. Great. So all of these things impact our attitudes and feelings about money. And it's just really important that we recognize when we're working with folks that we all come with a different set of values, culture, and experiences than the people that we're working with. They might be similar, but they might be different. And so recognizing that we're not coming in with a blank slate, right? It might be hard for us to talk about credit when we're thinking about our own credit card that's past due, or it might be challenging to feel good talking about student loans when you're thinking about repayment starting for yourself. So that's all normal, and just highlighting that everyone has this, and it might be something to explore with the people you work with. Where did they learn about money? How did they come to hold the ideas that they have about how they manage their money? And then just recognizing that in this context, some people may have never been able to fully manage their money without systems overseeing it, or power or control. And so recognizing that it might be different when you're working within the reentry context. So how do we have the money conversation? How do we start this with folks? There's a variety of tools that can help you start this conversation. So the first is called My Money Picture, and it helps somebody reflect on their own values around money. If we look here at a zoomed in section, we see some examples. So you're going to see a question on the left, yes, no, and I don't know. So for example, question number 3, do you have or will you have reliable transportation? Then there's a scoring sheet that will tell somebody where they can find out more information, maybe on getting an auto loan or budgeting for things like gas and insurance. Do you or have you applied for benefits, including Medicaid, Medicare, and other health coverage? So depending on how somebody answers, it will have them go to the income and benefits tracker to explore benefits that they might be eligible for. So I would encourage you all to do this tool for yourself, but also to do it with clients, because like I said, the guide and the toolkit are both very large. So it can take some of the pressure off of where to start in a money conversation. It will tell you these are the things and the tools that we can provide based on where that specific individual is. People tend to really like this one too. It can get people thinking about all of the things that they might not be thinking of in a money context, like the need for housing or transportation or health benefits, and really tying it back to financial goals. There's also a tool in the guide, and this is specific to focus on reentry. So it helps somebody prepare their money situation if they know that they're going to be incarcerated. Now, obviously, this isn't true for everybody, but in those instances when somebody does know that they are coming up on a period of incarceration, this helps them think about how to protect against identity theft. So considering putting a credit freeze or fraud alert on their credit report, making sure that they have power of attorney and other things that they might need for financial accounts, pausing student loan payments, communicating about child support obligations. And then each of these has a link to additional resources for accessing information on the web. Then we see a tool on getting, identity theft is a significant issue for people who are incarcerated. Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to explore a whole module on protecting your identity, but this helps somebody get prepared. The next tool is about documents and ID that can help ease someone's transition. So it just walks somebody through if they have a particular document, and then if not, where to get it. So if somebody needs a certified copy of their birth certificate, have it, ordered it, or need help, and then there's some additional information. This tool can be used with assistance while somebody's still incarcerated. Some of the web forms they may or may not be able to access depending on the type of institution they're being held in and how helpful their case manager is, or if they have independent access to computers. So that sort of depends, but it can also help somebody just get to thinking about some of the things they might need, like their state ID, social security card, a copy of their criminal record or a rap sheet. And this is really important in the job search, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit as well. So here you can see a zoomed in, as I said, the state picture ID or driver's license, and then there's information that links people to their local motor vehicle services. They can find out what they need to get an ID. Any questions or thoughts on starting the money conversation? I'd be curious to hear from all of you. How does money come up? Are people specifically seeking out financial counseling or coaching, or is it in the context of another program like housing or parenting classes or general support services? Tell me in the chat if people are coming specifically for money conversations or if it's embedded into another service. Anyone? You can also come off mute if you'd rather do that than type. Great. So both embedding in programs and relationships with other organizations, part of the reentry planning process. Money is a default because it's financial coaching. Absolutely. So for some of you that are embedding financial conversations into other programs or services, that module may be more helpful than those where people are specifically seeking out financial coaching or counseling. So now we want to look at setting goals. So the Bureau uses SMART goals, which you may be familiar with. So making sure goals are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. So this tool helps people set up SMART goals, and it really starts with values. So which values are important to you? And this ties back to that money and me activity we did, but it can also help you understand maybe where somebody's coming from when they're setting financial goals. So things like family and friends, freedom, happiness, health, reputation, self-respect, stability, spirituality, status. And then there's a section for other to make sure we can really be responsive to the different ideas that people may hold. So then it helps people think about their long-term hopes and dreams and turning them into goals. So I'm curious to hear from you when you're working with folks. What is a goal that people have that you're working with? What is a goal that people you serve commonly have? Housing, homeownership, improved credit, car, good job, great. Fixing credit disputes, awesome. We're going to talk about all of this. Employment. Great. So, the SMART goal, thing I would like to change, being unemployed or not having enough money, dreams I have for myself in the future. I saw home ownership, being employed, right? So those things are all tied together. And then this next tool really helps somebody start with a SMART goal. So let's say somebody says they would like to get at least part-time hours, so 10 hours or more a week, a job paying $10 or more an hour, or I don't know, what's that? Do you guys have the minimum 15 there in Seattle? Yeah, okay. So, making X number of dollars in the next 3 months. That's a big goal. So this helps somebody break down the steps. So what's one specific step in each box for achieving your goal? Resources I need. And this is where somebody might list a program or service that you offer. So a free bus ticket, getting transportation, making sure I have an interview outfit, practicing my interview skills, all of those things might be tied to resources, and then a date to complete the step. So for the big goal of getting employment, what are some of the steps that somebody might need to take? What are some of the steps that somebody might need to take? Resume overview. Yeah, absolutely. Getting access to a computer to type a resume, right? Which we know might not be as easy right now during COVID if the library has limited hours or maybe WorkSource has closed their lobby. Job training, absolutely. Great. People might need something specific to their line of work, like a CPR card or food handler's card, interview techniques. Great. So these are all some of the steps that people could add here if they were working on an employment goal. Okay, so now we're going to talk about savings, which might seem like sort of a reach, but it's really important to note that saving is any money that you set aside today for future use. So I'll often work with people who say, oh, I've never saved in my life, but their rent costs more than one of their paychecks. So if you're setting aside your second paycheck, half of that for your rent for the first of the month, even though you're using it, you're saving, right? So we do this all the time mentally and don't give ourselves credit for that. So saving in general might not be somebody's first priority, but it's really important to focus on small amounts and then also think about goals tied to savings. So a security deposit, transportation, food, criminal debt, other housing costs. So savings isn't some magical bucket that we're going to work on and then never touch. It's going to be used for those goals that we identified on the other worksheets. So just to highlight that we have a handout on saving for tax time. The Bureau also has a page on filing in 2020 that talks about avoiding fraud and scams, making sure people got their economic impact payments if they were eligible, other increased benefits, and then information about free tax filing either online or through VITA sites or tax counseling for the elderly. So this is a handout that you can use to provide information about taking advantage of free tax services and really using that to jumpstart people's financial goals. So maybe that becomes the source of their housing deposit or helps them pay off other immediate needs. And we just always want to mention savings and asset limits. So we're not going to go in depth here, but maybe you're working with somebody who you've connected to a SOAR advocate and they're working on getting SSI or SSDI. Just researching your local asset limits to make sure when people are saving that they're not going to be cut off from programs that they really need, whether that be SNAP, TANF, disability, LIHEAP, etc. So this helps somebody do some research and really make a plan that will work best for them. Okay, any thoughts or questions on savings? Is that something that people are interested in or coming up? Is that a conversation you're having with the folks that you're working with? I know it can be a bit of a challenge when people are focused on more immediate needs. More so about debt, emergency fund, great. Conversation tied to goals, otherwise it can feel overwhelming. Yeah, absolutely. And it can be helpful to start with something fun if there's a holiday that people celebrate or a seasonal need that people are used to budgeting for. That can really help open up that conversation. So we're going to get to debt in a few minutes, but before we do that, we wanted to talk about income and benefits. So just making sure that people are tracking their income, including maybe one-off income, things from the gig economy, and then making sure that they're getting benefits that they're eligible for. So we have this income and benefits tracker. And all of the tools, you don't have to be an expert to use. They're going to always start with this numbered system of what to do. Sometimes there's a call out box. So here we see information about net income. So you really don't need to be an expert to share this with somebody and sit down and collaborate with them on this. So we want somebody to track their income and the timing of their income. So when they're getting money from pay and other benefits, but this can also sort of act as a checklist or remind people, oh, I might be eligible for SNAP. Maybe I should apply. Maybe I'm eligible for TANF or other benefit programs. And we want people to total up by week and then to total for the month. And we're going to use this information in a little bit. So we'll come back to this. But we find that people are terrible estimators, both on income and expenses. So helping people get an accurate picture of what's actually coming in. This tool is specific to focus on reentry. So it talks about understanding a pay stub. This can be really important for somebody who's been out of the workforce or maybe didn't understand their pay stub before. So it talks about gross wages, FICA, year to date, and can be helpful for folks. I also use this. We don't have a similar tool in the main toolkit. So somebody said that they work with youth, for maybe folks who need some information. They're getting their first pay stub. This is a great tool to share with them so that they understand what those deductions are. Okay, so we have the income side. Now we need to look at paying bills, and then we're going to look at debt and credit. So the spending tracker is the flip side of the income and benefits log. So you see here a zoomed in screen, and again, those steps. So we want somebody to collect their expenses. They can do that through collecting receipts, writing them down in a check register or on a piece of paper, or using an app or mobile banking, whatever they prefer. And ideally, we want somebody to track their spending for the whole month. That can feel really overwhelming. So even starting somebody with a week so that they can use that information to generalize will be more accurate than if they just estimate from their head. So we see the different categories. And I'm wondering if somebody can tell me in the chat why they think cell phone is first. Why is cell phone listed first? Any ideas?
I think I'll just answer this one with my voice instead of via the chat, but I'm assuming cell phones first is because you need a cell phone to be able to reach out to these debtors or these collection agencies, or if you want to eat out and make a to-go order, or if you wanted to reach out to get further information on education and childcare, you're going to need a cell phone.
Yeah, great. Great. So we're going to do an activity in a minute called good debt, bad debt, and that'll come up. Communication, internet access. Yeah. So for some people, maybe a cell phone is a need. For other people, they might consider it a want. So we do an activity where we ask people, is this a need or a want? And it's really interesting. We always have somebody who says, I haven't ever had a cell phone, or it's a waste of money. And then other people say, well, if you are doing rideshare or getting people's groceries, you need a cell phone with a data plan in order to work. But here it's actually listed alphabetically. And the reason why things are alphabetical is just because we don't want to put our values that we talked about onto other people. So we're not saying that eating out is third most important. It's just third because it starts with an E. So they're all listed alphabetical so that we can really start with no judgment in terms of what people are spending. There's also a section at the end for other. So really calling that out for folks, if you don't want me to know specifics, you can add anything you want there, just please record it. So that can be really helpful working with folks who are maybe not ready to share everything yet. But great ideas. Yeah, cell phones are increasingly really important. And we saw a lot during the pandemic where people were accessing school or work websites on phones with data plans. So definitely a lifeline for folks. So we have the income and we have the expenses. And what we're going to do is put it together into a cash flow budget. So a cash flow budget's a little bit different than a traditional budget where you just total up what's coming in and what's coming out. This takes into effect timing. And so that's why we really want people to total by week. So if you do that income and benefits tracker and then the spending tracker, you'll have everything you need to create this cash flow budget. So maybe you can see it's grayed out, but there's a space to put the information on the money the person's receiving each week and then their weekly expenses, and it will give them their ending weekly balance. And all of our individual tools auto calculate. So if somebody does have that smartphone and they can use it, they don't have to do any math. There's also printed versions, whatever works for people. But we find the fact that they self-calculate can be really helpful for people, especially folks who are maybe more intimidated by math. So one thing here that can happen is maybe somebody has $500 coming in, right? So they got a job and they also are getting some SNAP. But they're running out of money in week 3. So this can show somebody maybe they need to call and ask to move the due date of their cell phone bill so that they can pay on time. So this can be really eye-opening for people. There's also a tool that does this on the calendar, so it's more visual. So this could be a whole session on its own. We're not going to go into further details, but just know that this is in there. There's also in the focus on people with disabilities companion guide, a standard budget. So you're welcome to use that with anybody if that's more helpful, either based on how much time you have or just where the person's at in terms of mental load and capacity to engage in a longer cash flow process. So debt came up earlier in the chat. So what is debt? It's something you owe to somebody. And working in reentry, folks might have debt related to sentencing, restitution, incarceration, supervision. They might have fines and fees. They might even have expenses related to drug testing, probation, mandatory treatment. So it's really important that people are tracking those in addition to other debts that they might have to pay. So we do this activity called good debt, bad debt to really help people think beyond what they might have thought about different types of debt. So tell me in the chat, is a student loan a good debt or a bad debt? Student loans, thumbs up or thumbs down? Okay, good, good, both. Good. Usually good. Okay. It depends. Great. So what can be good about a student loan? It can help provide access to education or job training to folks who may not have had access without a loan. It can lead to a higher paying job, right? Especially with fields that maybe require something or a specific certificate. When you're repaying, if you're able to repay on time, it can help you build your credit history. But it can be bad because maybe somebody borrows more money than what they'll end up making and they can't afford those monthly payments. Maybe they're unable to finish their degree or credential because of life things that come up. The terms and conditions might be misunderstood. The way interest accrues is a little bit different than many other financial products and services. And it's extremely difficult to discharge in bankruptcy. Yeah, somebody mentioned the type of school. Absolutely. So the CFPB has a resource called Paying for College, and it really helps somebody evaluate specific schools using graduation rates, total debt at graduation, their for-profit or nonprofit status. And then it also helps somebody look at different financial aid offers and compare what they'll end up actually paying at the end. So that can be a helpful tool if people are looking at higher education and job training. So is a payday loan a good debt or a bad debt? Bad, bad, bad. Bad, bad. Okay. So what's bad about a payday loan? Just don't do it. Oh, great. So Jennifer put in the chat some additional resources about paying for college. A payday loan generally has really high interest with a short term. They can often roll into each other and add additional fees. A post-dated check will be cashed and can deplete your accounts or overdraft them and lead to overdraft charges. But I wanna push you here. So what's something that might be good about a payday loan? Why might somebody choose a payday loan? Why might somebody choose a payday loan? It's their only option. No emergency fund. Yep. Fast money. Mainstream lenders have turned them away. Absolutely, right? So sometimes we can kind of vilify, oh, this is a terrible decision, but payday lenders are often owned by the same financial institutions that told people they weren't worthy of a loan, right? They have an emergency. One of the things that I think about too is payday lenders are open late usually, right? So if a bank is open 9 to 4:30, that's not very helpful if you need to access cash at 6, 7, 8, 9. It can help push down the road other consequences, right? Losing housing, those sorts of things. And then one of the things that I've heard a lot from people is, they treated me with respect and dignity. And maybe that's something that I didn't get at other places I went for money, right? They were friendly to me and that mattered. So none of this is an endorsement either way of student loans or payday loans, but just to keep in mind some of the things that might be coming up when you're having conversations about debt with clients and asking where they're coming from. Why does the student loan seem like a good idea or a bad idea to them? Okay, so we want to start here with the debt log. So this helps somebody track their debt and also look at potential consequences. So you can see here, there's a space for justice system debt, such as fines and fees, and to consider the consequences if you can't pay the debt. So we see first is reincarceration, which is something that, other folks might not be considering, repossession, loss of a driver's license, loss of housing, and the list goes on. So we're not saying, you should pay this first or second. It helps somebody make the best decision for them based on how much money they have and the potential consequences of not paying a specific debt. And then it gives other common types of debt. So auto loans, back child support, medical debt, payday loans, rent, or mortgage that's past due. Can also be a helpful tool for you to share resources. So maybe you offer rent assistance or can connect them to, well, I guess ERAP is sort of winding down, but maybe you could connect them to resources around medical debt, etc. Then we have tools on strategies for lowering debt. So this helps somebody look at just debt prioritization, negotiating repayment. This includes asking for waivers for fines and fees, etc. So this tool is more informational, but can be really helpful for somebody who's struggling with debt. All right, any thoughts on debt? Any debt questions that we didn't cover or topics that are coming up with the people that you serve? Well, then we will jump into credit, which tends to be everyone's favorite topic. So I'm sure many of you know this, but credit is complicated because there's both scores and reports. So credit is the ability to borrow money. You can have access to credit without having debt. When you take out a credit card or another loan, you create or add to your credit history. So sometimes when people talk about having good credit or bad credit, they're referring to their credit history. Credit reporting companies then compile this information into credit reports, and then information in the report is how scores are calculated. A lot of people tend to be really fixated on credit scores, but the Bureau really recommends focusing on credit reports. Typically, people don't need to buy credit scores unless there's a specific situation they're preparing for, because the report is where the information comes from. So how do people request their free credit reports? So things are a little bit different right now. Typically, you can get a free credit report once per year from Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. But right now, because of coronavirus, it's actually extended, and this just got extended again. So it's through April 20th of 2022, but they just changed this date. So you can go to the Bureau's website to find an updated date. And then also Equifax, because of a security breach, you can get extra reports through 2026. There's also additional exceptions. So if somebody's the victim of identity theft, if they're on public assistance, if they are unemployed and will be seeking a job, all of these things make people entitled to additional free reports. So this helps somebody walk through a strategy of either spacing out their reports. So in a typical year, we would say one a quarter, kind of for credit monitoring, or getting them all at once if somebody's preparing for applying for apartments, getting a car loan, etc. This tool isn't as relevant right now just because reports are so widely available. But when you go back to that 3 free per year, this might be a helpful conversation to have. If you're working with folks who are in a correctional facility, there's a different process. They need to send in additional information, including their prisoner identification number, and to mail the request, their addresses, and they also need to submit a letter. So the tool in here has all of the information to make sure that they can request their report. It's also important to note that correctional facilities have different policies about storage of personal information. So the person may want to ask the correctional facility to determine how they will keep copies of the credit report. If someone has barriers requesting a credit report from jail or prison, please submit a complaint to the CFPB. This is really important information for them to know, and I'll show you how to submit a complaint in a little bit. So once somebody has their credit reports, there's a tool that really walks somebody through how to review their credit reports. I find clients love this because it's one of the things that takes no money and can really make a big impact on somebody's life. So it walks them through the different sections. So the identifying information, public records, collection accounts, then their current accounts, and then ask them to check to make sure certain information is correct. Then there's space for somebody to write down questions. So what if somebody finds something on their credit report that is incorrect, a collections account that isn't them, right? It's somebody else. Then you're going to dispute the error. So this tool has, or handout has, information on how to dispute online, by phone, or by mail, and walk somebody through step by step how to make a dispute. I know we're fast moving, but I just wanted to be able to provide an overview on sort of all the different modules. Anything on credit that people are wondering, or anything that's come up trying to get folks in correctional institutions copies of their reports? Okay. So the next module is on financial products and services. And the first tool we're going to look at is on opening a checking or savings account. So this really helps somebody be prepared to open an account, to make sure that if they're going in person, they have everything that they need. So it walks somebody through what documents they need to gather, and making sure that they ask about the required opening deposit. There's also a tool on comparing financial services providers. So if somebody wants to look at different interest rates or costs, but this can be really helpful and provides information on the different types of ID and secondary ID that financial institutions will accept. There's also a tool on evaluating prepaid and payroll cards. And this is really important because it helps somebody review the different fees associated with their payroll or prepaid card. It also talks about their rights. So for instance, an employer has to offer at least one alternative payment method in addition to a payroll card. Prepaid cards are a little bit different for government benefits, because many of them are administered by states. It depends, but there may be additional options. So it helps somebody get the facts and make sure they're prepared and not caught off guard by different fees. And then just a note here that someone will always have the most protection if they register their prepaid card. So the Bureau really wants to make sure that people are registering their card so that they have rights if something goes wrong with their balance. In Module 9, we look at identity theft and some other topics. And I know identity theft came up earlier. So this is where you'll find that information. And this is also where you'll find the information on how to submit a complaint. We're going to skip this for now and go on to Module 10 so I can actually do a live demonstration of the website. But know that this has information on how somebody can submit a complaint. And we'll go back to that in just a minute. And then the last module is on understanding background screening reports. So just knowing that there are special rules that apply when employers use consumer reports for employment purposes, and that individuals can dispute errors just as they can on their credit report. So if the background report contains negative information, they should be prepared to explain it. So this is why it's really helpful for them to get their rap sheet and make sure all of the charges are correct. So this helps somebody walk through how to check for errors on their background screening report. So name, social security, case and docket, making sure cases don't appear more than once. Making sure there isn't information that should have been expunged or sealed, and that the report doesn't include incorrect or incomplete records. If somebody needs help, they can get help from an attorney, legal aid, or pro bono or other attorney. And online, the Bureau has a list that helps them find an attorney in their state. There's also a link to the criminal records on cleanslate.clearinghouse.org. So some additional information there. And then there's also information on expungement online. So if that's of interest to somebody. Then there's a handout on obtaining criminal record reports. So it walks somebody through how to get different criminal record data that they may need. And again, this is the handout that has information on expungement. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing real quick while I flip over. Are there any questions so far? And if you don't have a question, tell me which tool you would be most likely to use in your work. Which tool would you be most likely to use in your work? Budget, great. Cash flow, goal tracking, great. Budget planner, credit repair tools and budget, great. And I know this was really fast. You know, today is really just an overview. We have an additional session coming up, and we also have public trainings that you are always welcome to join. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen to show you some things on the Bureau's website, including how to submit a complaint. So if you go to CFPB.gov or consumerfinance.gov, either one will work. You'll come to this landing page. And you'll see there's information on protecting yourself financially from coronavirus. So if you or clients that you're working with are struggling during the pandemic, there's information about working with creditors, rental assistance, all that good stuff. But if we scroll down in the We Want to Hear From You section, there's information on how to submit a complaint. So when somebody is having a problem with a financial product or service, the Bureau really wants to hear from you. If you don't want to submit a complaint or you're not sure if you have a complaint, you can also use a feature called Tell Your Story. You can use that as well for positive experiences in the financial marketplace, but this really helps the individual get a potential resolution, but also helps inform the Bureau's work. So if you click on Start a New Complaint, there's an overview of what you'll need to submit online. And then the first page is always a little slow to load, but it asks people to start with what the complaint is about. And we just like to show this page so you can see the variety of topics, everything from debt collection to credit reporting and repair. This also includes personal consumer reports, so background reports, employment screening, those sorts of things. If somebody's having a hard time getting a credit report while they're incarcerated, student loans, money transfer and virtual services, checking accounts. So you or the people you work with can use this. And there's also a phone number that you can call. So it's available in 180 languages. So if somebody needs that service, there's no reason that they can't still submit a complaint. There's also great information. Maybe you're writing a grant or need some information to make the case as to why this information is important to share with clients. You can look at different complaint data. And there's a map so you can sort by your zip code. Which I went to the wrong. So this is the consumer complaint database. And if you click on Explore Data, you can look at trends. So you can see all of the complaints submitted to the CFPB. So in September of 2020, there were 39,000 complaints. You can look by topic. So you'll see that credit reporting, credit repair, and other personal consumer reports is the most popular topic by a lot. You can look at different date ranges, but you can also search by zip code. So if we go to Washington, you can see there's been just under 15,000 complaints. The most popular topics and incorrect information on report is the most popular. So you can explore this and filter down. It'll show you the different subproducts, but you can search by zip code. So if you add information there, you'll get data just for Washington. And then if you add your zip code for just the location where you are. Okay, and Jennifer added another link in the chat about criminal records and hiring. Okay, and then the last thing I wanted to show you on here is just how to find all these resources that we went over at the beginning. So if you go to Consumer Resources Overview and then Resources for Practitioners, you'll see your money or goals, and that will take you to the landing page with all the different tools we spoke on. And then there's also this place where you can sign up for email. They don't send emails super often, but that's how you'll find out, for instance, that a resource became available in Spanish or that a webinar is occurring. So our public training series happens about quarterly, and that's a great way to get information on the toolkit. So if you click on companion guides, we worked on focus on reentry today, and you can download, and then you'll also see the link to order. And this will take you to an external site run by Pueblo. And this allows you to order bulk publications for free. So if you haven't ordered, it's really easy. We can't ship to PO boxes, but you're welcome. You know, we've had lots of questions. I'm working from home or hybrid right now. You can send it to any street address. You select your quantity and add it to the cart. In addition to your money or goals topics, there's lots of free bookmarks, information for youth. The newcomers guides to managing money are helpful for immigrant communities. There's information on tax time. So all of these things are things that you can have shipped to you for free for your use. You can also filter by the language that things are available in. So if you are working with a community that needs resources in Spanish, for example, you can see just all the different resources that are available in Spanish. And I know I said that that was the last thing, but I thought of one more thing that is going to be the next slide. And that is this tool called Ask CFPB. So you really don't have to be an expert to be having these conversations with clients. You can come here and know that you're getting access to trusted information that isn't branded or about selling a product or service. So you can look at the different tile topics, but you can also search. So let's say you forget, how do I get my credit report, right? We touched on it just briefly. So if you search if you start typing, you'll see it'll come up. And then there's the link, phone, mail, all the information that you need. You can also switch the website into different languages. So not all the information may be available in all languages, but it's really easy to just toggle back and forth here at the top to the language that you need. All right. Any questions? I have a few more slides, but I want to make sure that we cover anything else that people are wanting to know. And then I know we're going to have another conversation sort of specific to what folks are doing.
You know, today we're talking about folks working with individuals and communities that have been involved in the justice system. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the workshop today, we have been doing some different work in this area over the last year, including a couple of Bank on Washington coffee hour events in September and in December that I linked to in the chat earlier. And out of that work, there is a group of folks working in this area of financial empowerment and justice involved individuals who are looking to form an informal networking group to get together and, you know, talk more deeply about what's happening in the work, look at opportunities to collaborate and coordinate, you know, really thinking about how do we avoid duplication, but ensure that folks, all folks everywhere have access to services. And unfortunately, Becky had to jump off, and she is one of the leaders of who's kind of putting that together. So if that is something that you are interested in learning more about, if you could put your email address in the chat, I will collect those and make sure they get to Becky. And it's the other person who's leading that is Andrea Alexander with Tribal Technologies Training, who's also the leader of the Northwest Native Asset Building Coalition. And so if you drop your email in the chat, I will collect those and get them to Becky and Andrea because we wanted to make sure that, you know, folks who are in this space have an not an outlet, but an opportunity to connect and collaborate. So it's a little bit of a niche, and we know that there are folks across the state doing it and don't necessarily know who all of you are. So thank you for adding your email to the chat. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Jennifer. I also put some links in the chat. So where to find the materials, the Ask CFPB link, the link to submit a complaint and tell your story. And I also put my email. It's a Gmail, but you're welcome to contact me there. We'd always love to hear about how you're using the materials. If you want help the first time you're making an order, if your organization would like additional training, more, you know, hands-on training on how to actually use the tools rather than kind of an overview, please feel free to reach out. We'd love to hear from you about what you're doing. If you have a suggestion for a tool, or if you have a suggested edit or something's not working for you, we also want to hear that, because, you know, these are really for you all. So if something's not making sense or working, we need to know that. So last call for any questions. thoughts, ideas?
I will just plug one more event that's coming up since I have a captive audience. We are also putting together a financial coaches convening that's going to be starting in March. It is tentatively scheduled for the last Friday in March. This is for anybody that's working on financial empowerment issues across Washington State, working in the community. And so if you're interested, that information will be going out probably starting next week. We'll be doing some outreach about it. It will get posted on LinkedIn. It will go out in our email list, which I will add you all to. So please keep an eye out for that. That's a new initiative that we're starting. We're really hearing from folks that it's so hard to connect and network during the pandemic. We are all looking at these little black boxes. And so having an informal networking opportunity where it's not a training, but just an opportunity for folks to learn more about others that are doing this work, hear from other practitioners, and get to know each other, get to know the community. So I hope you'll consider joining us for that as well.
Thanks, Jennifer. And somebody in the chat asked for more information and resources for formerly incarcerated folks. So if anybody wants to share about their organization or what they do, that would be great. I also loved the baby.
Francis, there is the Seattle Clemency Project does mentoring, and so I would be happy to do an introduction to Anthony Powers at SCP with you. So I'll take that offline and do that for you. Any other questions about the network or about the workshop today? Then I will give you all the gift of time. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been great, and I appreciate you all sticking in with us and really thinking through what this looks like here in Washington and how we can support folks who are involved with the justice system with their financial wellness. So thank you so much and have a great rest of your afternoon.